I thank Nancy Gothy, our communications maven. She sends out those emails that come out every Monday, and hopefully you signed up to be on the list if you weren't already. Thanks to our technology wizards, Gina and Wes Bixby. Gina back there and Wes over there. And our greeters back there, Kyle and Donna Booth. You've already had a taste of Mindy's talents. It gets better and better as the evening goes. Well, it doesn't get better and better. It started out great. She is a local singer-songwriter, and she's joined us before, and her dad was one of our early participants in those rallies until we lost him last year. Reverend Wes Bixby from this church just welcomed us. We can't thank him and this church enough because they have embraced us. Many of us are members here. Great support through the years. Coming up, longtime member Priscilla Crummell will be reciting an original poem, and Henrietta Wiley, another longtime member of Brady, will light the candles as Jim Crummell highlights the many types of gun violence. Jim is stepping in for Patrick McLean, who you'll see on your program. His name may still be on there. He is on the mend from a running accident earlier this week, and we trust he'll be back with us soon. Rabbi Singer from Congregation, and I should have asked you the exact pronunciation before I got up here. Congregation KH, that I can do. Here in Sarasota, we'll be offering a reflection, and Reverend Thomas Williams will also be offering a reflection tonight. He's from Bethlehem Bible Church. And our National Vice President for Policy, Christian Heine, will share his story, which is remarkable. We're zooming him in from Colorado, and thus the TV. We have held too many vigils for our hearts to accept. But it is important to remember the victims and grieve with those left behind. These people are gone. These people live without them forever. And that's important to remember. So thank you all for being here in the room and in wherever you are, and for putting a light on this years-old pandemic of gun violence. Priscilla.
Good evening. Peace abounds. It's all around us. Are we too busy to notice? Do we listen and absorb it? It calls out to us. Hear it. The earth is beautiful. It has pure, massive icebergs in Alaska. Aurora Borealis paints a peaceful beauty in Earth's skies. But we have to look towards peace. The waterfalls on Maui wash peacefully over those who bathe. Stand on top of Haleakala, be enfolded in the giant white clouds. The rest of the world seems to disappear. Feel the peace. As the sun rises over Grand Canyon, there is permanent promise of peace and stability. It paints a beautiful portrait of tranquility and magnificence that overcomes those who witness. Immense and strong, with peaceful hope. The strong waves of our sparkling oceans return to shore over and over, cleansing, clearing away the clutter of confrontation, violence, and hate. There's strength in peace. Look towards our mountains, so purple and full of majesty, inspiring us to reach high for positive endeavors. Feel the peace of our mountains. The blue skies of Florida with big puffs of pure white clouds shape a message that all will be well. There's more to come if we hope and work for peace. See the golden sunset settle in the western horizon. There's a promise of peace. Pursue it. Peace is on the way. We have gifts from our earth, rich plants for food. Taste the peace. Clear water. Drink the peace. Pure, pristine air. Breathe the peace. New generations come to witness Earth and its beauty. Let's dream of good health, bodies and minds for them. Let's invent more ways for peace. May the falls of Niagara wash away our vicious inhumanity and show us gleaming peace. Thank you.
Good evening. Mass shootings have occurred in malls and office buildings, places of worship and concert halls, bars and people's homes. These are incidents in which 4 or more people are shot and either killed or wounded. School shootings, of course, are among the worst. 10 days ago, 4 teens were killed and 7 people were injured at Oxford High School in Michigan. We light our first candle for them and all the victims of mass shootings. Suicides account for 60% of all gun deaths. They may be from veterans suffering from PTSD, depressed teens acting on impulse, people with problems they see as unsurmountable. We light a candle for them. Every 16 hours, a woman in America is shot and killed by a current or former intimate partner. We light a candle for the victims of domestic violence. 4.6 million American children live in homes with at least one loaded and unlocked gun, according to a 2018 study. We suspect that number has gone up since people were home during the pandemic. We light a candle for the victims of unintentional shootings. Whether you are shot or not, armed robberies create an illusion of impending death. Some die, some live on in lifelong terror. We light a candle for them. Police shot and killed 1,021 people last year, a disproportionate number in Black and brown communities. In addition, 245 officers are shot by civilians each year, 42 of them fatally. We light a candle for the victims of unjustified shootings by and of police. Halfway through this year, murders were already up 22% across 36 American cities due to street violence. We light a candle for the victims. The number of domestic terror plots and attacks are at the highest they have been in decades, according to nonpartisan security experts. Many are the work of white supremacists. We light a candle for the victims of domestic terrorism. Giffords reports that there are roughly 10,000 hate crimes involving guns each year because of someone's real or perceived race, color, religion, national origin, sexual orientation, gender identity, gender or disability. We light a candle for the victims. We light the final candle for those who suffer lifelong effects from being wounded by gunfire, and for those who face a lifetime grieving for someone they loved and lost.
I'm Rabbi Jennifer Singer from Congregation Kol HaNeshama here in Sarasota. It does bear telling you what our name means. It's from the last line of the last psalm, which says, Kol HaNeshama Tehallel. Kol means all or every. Neshama is person or living being or soul. Tehallel, praise, Yah, God. Our name means every living being praises God. I'm honored to be here tonight to share in this evening that is dedicated to peace and remembrance, to mourn with you and perhaps to pray with you for peace. As this group does every year, we just lit candles and we remember the many lives that were snuffed out and affected by gun violence. I am always deeply moved by candle lighting ceremonies. It's a perfect expression of hope, of faith, and of yearning. This is the time of year when the days grow so short and the dark nights are so long. It is no wonder that traditions like Christianity, Judaism, and others chose December to spread the light of love and understanding. The Jewish holiday of Hanukkah just ended, when we light candles each night to commemorate a moment in a war for religious freedom, when a small amount of oil miraculously lasted for 8 days. It would make more sense if we began with 8 candles and reduced the number of candles each night, just as the amount of oil dwindled and became smaller. But instead, we have chosen to increase the amount of light each night, just as the awe and gratitude of the people must have grown day by miraculous day. And the question that I ponder every year is this: why did they light the lamp at all? They knew there was only enough oil for one day. They knew they would run out before more could be made. Why waste the oil on hand? Did they know? Could they have possibly guessed? And it brings me to the question of why is it? What is it that moves us to light candles against the dark? Eventually, the night will win and the candles will sputter out. Yet we persist. We persist because we know that we must be the light that shines on everything that needs to be repaired in a world so desperately in need of repair. We persist because if we save even one life, we will have been successful. We persist because we know that a candle is not diminished when it shines its light and shares its flame with another. We persist in honor of all who have died and all whose lives have been forever changed. We persist because we too are like these candles. We can burn brightly. We can share our light, the light of our souls and the light of our hearts. And we can share ourselves with generosity, with grace, and with hope for a better future. May each of us and each of you on Zoom be blessed to share our light, to tend to the flame of hope and courage and dedication, to be beacons of hope, to persist even though the night is dark and long, because we believe in the night, in the light. Amen, and thank you.
To this song are in your program. If you will sing with me, let there be peace on earth. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be.
Christian Heine is Brady's National Vice President for Policy, leading all legislative efforts at the federal and state level. He previously served as the legislative director at the Coalition to Stop Gun Violence. Christian grew up in Thousand Oaks, California, and he began advocating for stronger gun laws after a man with a history of violence shot his parents on Memorial Day 2005. I will let him tell you his story, but I can tell you that I marvel at the things he has accomplished in this movement since that day. He and his dad started a Brady chapter in Ventura County, California, and they helped pass several local ordinances. He started Brady's only collegiate chapter while attending California State University in Chico. And that was just the beginning of his accomplishments in this movement. After receiving a legal studies degree and a paralegal certificate, Christian moved to Washington, D.C., where he currently resides. Often on the road for Brady, he joins us tonight from Colorado. And we will view him here, right over there on that screen. Christian.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for having me here for this incredibly powerful night, and for centering this evening in something that's personal for me, right? And for so many of us. I know that for Brady in particular, an organization that is named after Jim and Sarah Brady, survivors of gun violence themselves, right? We are an organization that is constantly trying to root ourselves in survivor voices. And I'm incredibly proud to be in the position that I am as a survivor myself. Like Carol said, I come to this movement as a survivor of gun violence. My parents had spent an incredible weekend together, one for the record books. They borrowed a boat from my dad's best friend and spent the weekend getting sunburnt and eating barbecue and hanging out with our 2 golden retrievers and just having an incredible holiday weekend. When they came back to return the boat to my dad's best friend, a man lay in wait to shoot my dad's best friend. And because my parents were there, he turned the gun on them as well. He shot my dad's best friend in the chest, turned the gun on my father. And that's about the moment that things became real for him. He either was trying to lead the gunman away from my mother and my dad's best friend, or was just running for his life. But either way, the gunman followed him, shot him 2 more times. And when he was confident that he had left him for dead, he came back around the building, and my mom hadn't run away. Neighbors told us that she stayed there, keeping pressure on my dad's best friend's wounds to keep him alive. And from what we know, the last words she ever spoke were when the gunman let her beg for her life. She ran about 10 steps and was shot and killed with a single bullet to the back. This gunman went on to terrorize our community. He bludgeoned another mother to death in front of her 2 kids, put both of those kids in an ICU, shot and wounded a police officer, and ultimately he took his own life. We're very fortunate that my father survived his wounds and is healthy today. My mother was killed. My dad's best friend was killed. This other mother was killed. And, you know, one thing I try to tell people is that I don't tell this story because I get enjoyment out of it. It's horrifying. I have had to relive it a lot. I've had to relive it a lot this week around the holidays. I'm hyper aware of the pain and trauma that, not that we went through in 2005, but we're still going through today. But the one thing I know is that as remarkable as my story sounds, it's not remarkable at all. The only thing that is remarkable about it is how unremarkable it is. This kind of gun violence is occurring every day in this country. My story, even in 2005, what happened to my family was not a national storyline, because we have become so accustomed to this kind of gun violence on a daily basis. And I am from a community where I didn't think gun violence was going to impact my life. There are too many communities in this country where that's just not their story, right? Communities that have to suffer the plague of daily gun violence, where every single day children can no longer be on playgrounds for fear of being caught by a stray bullet. I have met too many people in this work over the last 15 years, 16 years, that have gone through the same thing in different ways. We're a part of this family, this club that none of us want to be a part of, but are also really the only people that understand that for us, gun violence isn't necessarily the story you're reading about in the paper. It's the fact that my mother will never have the opportunity to know what it was like to be a grandmother, to ever meet her grandchildren. She'll never have the opportunity to see any of her children. She didn't get to see any of her children get married. All of us are, but we had an empty seat in the front row of where we were, where we had our ceremony. And for us, that's what gun violence looks like, is that empty seat. I talk often to people, when we started unpacking what happened to our family, we started peeling back the layers of the onion, and we realized, we didn't think gun violence was going to impact us, but in reality, with the system of laws that we have around guns in this country, there is no community that can ever feel safe from gun violence, because we just don't do anything to prevent it, which is why we are the only industrialized country that has a gun violence problem that is exponentially worse than any other country when you look at gun death rates. I talked to a survivor a while back, and I do think that for as awful and how long this has been going, the one thing that I push back on is that we can't do anything about it. We simply can't think that way, because we know exactly what solutions work. It has been studied. When they are put into place, we know that it works to save lives. We know that we can prevent things like firearm suicide, which account for 3 out of 5 gun deaths in America. We can prevent domestic homicides and instances of domestic abuse if we separate that abuser from a firearm. We know that we can do proactive things to screen individuals at point of purchase. We can prevent the flow of illegal guns into communities of color that are disproportionately impacted by gun violence if we just show up and do the work. This movement was lonely for survivors like me for too long, frankly. And I am always so incredibly moved by events like this because of folks like yourself, because you're here right now. I would show up to events like these where there would be more speakers than attendees, and look at the group that we have here tonight. If we show up, we win. And so I want to commend every single person who's here for showing up, and ask you from the bottom of my heart to keep showing up. Because I think if you do that, we can fundamentally shift the course and the direction of gun violence in this country. When I was talking to my friend whose son was shot multiple times at Virginia Tech, we were trying to talk about what changed in the mid-2000s, right? I mean, if you think about up until that point, right, up until about 2013, it's not like we were immune from gun violence. We had seen the headlines. I had grown up with the headlines in Columbine, in Virginia Tech, in Aurora, in Oak Creek, Northern Illinois, Fort Hood, and countless others that were occurring every single day. Stories like my own that maybe I didn't read about, or maybe it happened in a community where gun violence is too frequent, so it's in the back of the newspaper, or maybe it's firearm suicide, which we just don't talk about adequately, so we can't find the solutions, right? All of these instances my friend described as drops in a bucket that people weren't necessarily paying attention to, and this narrative continued on and on and on that, well, that's just America, nothing can be done. And then the shooting in Sandy Hook took place, right? We're coming up on the anniversary in 4 days. And to see the faces of 20 children, 5 and 6 years old, to see the 6 educators that gave their life by trying and successfully protecting more students that day, it was too jarring for Americans to look away, right? And as a result, I think as a country, that bucket, all those drops into the bucket, it tipped over. And this nation decided enough is enough. I will tell you the myth that I hear all too often, and we can't let it persist. We need to continue to push back on it. And the myth is, if we couldn't do it then, after Sandy Hook, well, then what will it take, and how come it hasn't happened? Well, that's just not the reality that we have lived in for the last 8 years, right? If you look at what has happened around this country, if you look at the fundamental shift that we have seen in Congress, if you look at the fundamental shift you have seen in politicians, if you look at the fundamental shift we see in events like tonight, if you look at the fundamental shift of voters who are going out there and putting guns first, that is why so many states have changed fundamentally what their gun laws look like. That is why we were able to get a majority of senators in 2013 to vote for universal background checks. In 2012, most Americans that lived in this country thought that a background check was required for every single gun purchase in America. Today, we live in a country where folks not only understand that in a majority of states you can buy a gun without so much as a background check, but over 90% of Americans support changing that law, right? 82% of gun owners support changing that law. 74% of NRA members support changing that law. We can walk onto the floor of the NRA convention and convince and talk to more people that will support changing and getting universal background checks than if we walk onto the floor of the US Senate, right? We need to keep showing up. And if we do that, we will change the systems that are making it so that that small minority of individuals are preventing the change that is sparking in states across the country. Let's talk about Virginia. Virginia is a state where the NRA is headquartered. Virginia is a place that loves their guns. Virginia is a place also where the NRA is functionally, the NRA has not had a candidate win in a statewide election in more than a decade. Think about that. Even in this most recent election where Terry McAuliffe was defeated, the incoming governor literally asked the NRA not to give him an endorsement, not to show up and do any of these events, right? Because they know that it is a liability for the NRA to talk about their extremist agenda in a place where we continue to make changes. That's because Virginia, that didn't happen overnight. It wasn't unintentional. It's because survivors showed up at the state house every single year, every single day after that horrific shooting at Virginia Tech. They did the hard work. They kept showing up, regardless of people saying that there's nothing that you could do, regardless of people saying in conventional wisdom, saying stay away from guns or you will lose. Regardless of all of that, they kept showing up. And that is why gun violence prevention to this day is still something that is incredibly potent and has fundamentally shifted the politics in that state. There is no reason why Florida can't be the same. Look at what happened. Look at what happened after the horrific shooting in Parkland. That was a tipping point for this country where all the education that had been done in between, Americans demanded that that turn into action, right? And regardless of losses that occur, because that's the way that this works as well, even in Florida, we were able to pass an extreme risk policy, an extreme risk law, that where we can temporarily remove firearms, where law enforcement can temporarily remove firearms from individuals at risk of dangerous behavior, a tool that law enforcement never had before. It's a preventative tool to stop horrific tragedies like the one that we saw that day from occurring. When we show up, when we fight, we win. So for me, my simple request to everybody who's listening tonight is please just keep showing up. And thank you for showing up. All the things that you're doing, the phone calls to legislators, the letters, they matter. They may not feel like they matter. It's a marathon, it's not a sprint, and we have to keep showing up. But if you do it, I promise you we'll get there. So thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for when you come tomorrow. And I look forward to getting to the end of the line here, where we can fundamentally have an impact in this country so we don't have to suffer gun violence the way we do as a nation. And I do believe that we'll get there. Thank you all very much. I really appreciate it.
This was written by my friend John Miller. When I lay my head on a pillow down and I say a prayer for the world going round, you, my friends, will be on my mind. May the human race learn to treat each other kind. And I wish you peace, and I wish you well. Peace to the world, peace for ourselves. And I wish you love, and I wish you friends. Peace and till we meet again. May each and every one do our very best. May our spirits soar till we earn our rest. Give an equal chance to every boy and girl. One love, one God, bless the world. And I wish you peace, I wish you well. And I wish you well. Peace to the world, peace to the world, peace for ourselves, peace for ourselves. I wish you love, I wish you love, and I wish you friends, and I wish you friends. Shalom to you till we meet again. Bury all the arms in our children's time. Let us all stand firm for basic human rights. May we learn to feed all the growing minds. Let us work for justice and freedom in our time. And I wish you peace, I wish you well, and I wish you well. Peace to the world, peace to the world, peace for ourselves, peace for ourselves. I wish you love, I wish you love, and I wish you friends, and I wish you friends. Namaste, till we meet again. And I wish you peace, I wish you well, and I wish you well. Peace to the world, peace to the world, peace for ourselves, peace for ourselves. And I wish you love, I wish you friends, and I wish you friends. Peace and amen. Shalom to you. Till we meet again. Oh.
Good evening. My name is Reverend Thomas Williams, and I give you greetings on behalf of my pastor, Reverend Patrick Miller, and the entire Bethlehem Baptist family. Pastor Miller had to be a father tonight and pick up his son from college, And I remember the conversation we had the other night when he shared this with me. And I began to have a reflection and a remembrance of June 4th of this year, when my daughter Dominique called around 10 o'clock, upset, emotional, angry, and crying. And she said, "Dad, all that stuff you preached about, it's not real. All the things that Granddaddy preached about and Grandma preached about, it's not true." I said, "Neek, what's the matter? What's wrong?" She's just upset. She's like, "It's just not real, because if God was real, how could he let this happen?" "Neek, what happened?" And she said, "My friend Victor, they shot him. They killed Victor. Victor's one of her closest friends. This is in Philadelphia. And unfortunately, as we heard tonight, Victor's one of 500 people that died in Philadelphia this year. And unfortunately, that number's still counting." I asked Neek, "I know you're upset, and I need you to calm down." And unfortunately, the pain that she's experienced is a pain I've also experienced. My friend Dennis was killed in gun violence. My brother-in-law Charles killed in a hail of bullets by the police. It's almost like a rite of passage. And my answer that night wasn't a good one, but it was an honest one. "Neek, God didn't pull the trigger, but he can wipe away your tears." And Pastor Bixby, Neek's not alone. There's too many mothers, fathers, grandmothers, Medeas, aunties, and uncles, all crying, "Why, God? Why my baby?" And whenever there's something going on like this, a disorder, the Creator looks back at the creation, the church, the synagogue, the mosque, and says, "Adam, where are you? Where are you, Adam? You have better choices. Are you exercising your dominion that I've given him?" It used to be Christmas cards featured lovers under mistletoe, families sharing cocoa. Now they feature assault rifles and asking, "Where's the ammo?" Adam, where are you? You can't hide. God sees us. Beloved, we've normalized bad behavior, and we've become desensitized to violence. Neek's friend Victor didn't make national headlines. He didn't make the national news, one of 500 killed in Philly this year. The weapons of war let loose on civilian populations in our schools and on our corners. I moved from Connecticut 10 years ago. A few years back, I remember when my phone started buzzing and they talked about Newtown. And Dorothy called me, my wife Dorothy called me and said, "Have you heard from Joe and Ozian?" Their son was at that school. He survived, but 20 of his friends did not. We have a choice. You are exercising that choice. Brady, Sarasota, thank you. We have to choose life. We have to value life. God, I tried to explain this, my sister would have done a much better job. She was a theology professor. God gave us free will. God gave us choice. It was part of his perfection to give us that. But we have to value and choose life. He's still asking, Adam, where are you? Our minds will forget. Never let us. But our minds will challenge us to forget Oxford, as we've forgotten Columbine and all the others. We may forget Victor and the countless, voiceless, faceless, nameless ones who no longer trade in the tangible and have transitioned from life to eternity. But God is asking us, Cain, where is your brother Abel? You know how we do. Am I my brother's keeper? Why do I have to show up and vote? Why do I have to come out and support? And God's looking back. The blood testifies against you. We have to remember. We can't forget. We have to make better choices. We have to practice our faith in a tangible way. It's not helpful to be so heavenly bound that we're no earthly good. But let us make a choice tonight to support, to help, and to be there, to make those changes, to make this a reality, so that one day we will overcome. And when God asks, Adam, where are you? We won't have to hide. We can say, here we are. We've stood up, we spoke up, and we made a change. God bless you.
What he said. Will you all stand and sing with me, We Shall Overcome? We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe that we shall overcome someday. On to victory. On to victory. On to victory. On to victory one day. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe that we shall overcome someday. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand one day. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe that we shall overcome someday. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace one day. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe that we shall overcome someday.
You gonna do one more? If I can. I didn't find this poem at the end until after my father had died. My dad was a career-long military person who never believed in bringing a gun into the home, and would be the first person. He'd be sitting over there next to Henrietta tonight. So I will just share this and then ask everyone to go in peace, and thank you so much for being a part of this tonight. And as Christian said, show up. As our wonderful speakers said, show up. They shall grow not old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. From For the Fallen by Lawrence Binion. Thank you, everybody.